He said they're freaks. So why do these freaks have more viewership, more further reach? It's because that is the elitist disdain they have for each and every one of you.
Tim Pool completely nukes this woke leftist from 60 Minutes who pretends to be a journalist as he attacks the right, calling them freaks in front of Scott Jennings. And Tim Pool torches both him and the elitist fake news for their arrogance, lies, and outright trash journalism in this clip from Timcast IRL. So let's get in.
I would consider him to be an ideological driven individual, an activist masquerading as a journalist, is calling the White House press a freak show. Hey, what's up? The day that I went there, he goes on TV and then says it's a freak show. Here's the clip.
The problem is that the right wing, hello, Scott, has taken advantage of this situation, I think, quite cleverly, quite wisely. They've played into a weakness.
What situation?
The situation of media being under attack. And so they've created a situation where...
You've almost got it. Keep going. What the right wing is taking advantage of is finally the American people saying enough is enough. They're tired of feeling like the mass media screens out one viewpoint versus another in political coverage. They're tired of media institutions favoring one party over another. They're tired of narratives over factual stories. If I had any advice for 60 Minutes or anybody else, it would be just cover the news and try to be fair about it and stop putting your finger on the scale, especially during campaigns.
You're talking about the old mass media myth that you could have this thing that was in the middle. The Walter Cronkite saying, that's the way it is, when it wasn't for many Americans the way it was. When people were pissed off.
But people back in those days trusted the media, did they not?
No, they just couldn't be heard. Because there was no two way. Now we have the internet.
Look at the Gallup polling. It was here, and now it's here. It's fallen off of a cliff.
Yeah, we do have that Gallup polling about trust
Look at that.
in media. And now, as in recent years, and let's be honest, Scott, a lot of this is driven by the rhetoric on your side of the aisle.
You think it's driven by the rhetoric and not the performance?
Absolutely.
So my point is this. If you're...
Well, I actually agree with Heavy Phillips, driven by the rhetoric of truth. When you're saying things like the very fine people hoax, it was a hoax. Trump never said that. We had a journalist on the show just a couple days ago, Tara Palmieri, who after 10 years, it's been 8 years, she still didn't know this. Trump never called Nazis very fine people. She thought he did.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
and
I would simply question...
With that information, she pushed back on the idea that there was anyone there worth defending.
I question why someone purporting to be a journalist never actually watched the video or read the transcript. She just believed it.
So if you don't know it's there, you don't even know how to look for it.
Scott, what do you mean? If someone says to me, Tim, did you hear that Trump punched a baby? I'll say, prove it. I'll say, show me the video. Show me the transcript, and I want sources. I will literally say, source. Where are you getting that from? I want evidence it happened. So on this show, we do our best, but nobody's perfect. And I'll even give that credit to corporations. Sometimes they get things wrong unintentionally. They largely intentionally make things false. The Covington smear. Not a single one of these people decided to actually look at what happened with the Covington kids. And we're going back years, but now the Maryland man hoax.
I got to talk about that. Okay, if I see both sides of this Maryland man thing. If I moved to California and some shit went down.
Ian, where are you from?
Ohio, but I'm from Maryland because I live in Maryland.
You're not from Maryland.
If someone asked me, where are you from? If I was in Germany and they're like, where are you from? I'd say Maryland.
No, you wouldn't.
Because that's where I came from.
That's not true.
Because I moved around so much, I would tell people I'm from LA when I lived in LA. When they would ask, where are you from? I'm from LA. I've been there 7 years.
You are one of the rare people who does that.
If I went to California and there was an article written and something happened and they were like, California man, something, something. Yeah, that's the meme. You can move to Florida. You're a Florida man. No. Dave, what's his name? Does that?
No.
So anyway, that's
you're wrong.
State of mind is they.
No, it's not.
You can write it up as such if I'm residing
if you're lying to people.
Well, these people, this guy's an El Salvadorian, and they're intentionally trying to spin it like he's an American Maryland dude.
That's the point. So they're intentionally lying. They're pushing a hoax. And Hassan Piker, did you notice? Hassan did not know the guy was from El Salvador. One of the most prominent leftist streamers speaking to millions of people, and in his mind, he saw CNN, he saw ABC, he saw these outlets, and he was like, this guy's from Maryland. I can't believe Trump would deport him. I would be as mad at Trump as he was if I thought Trump took a guy from Maryland and sent him to a foreign country. That's not what happened.
It should have said El Salvadorian man residing in Maryland. It should have said that.
That's what the New York Times said today, and I said, thank you. despite the fact that they're lying about everything else.
So it's like,
Folks, the devil is in the details, and Tim Pool is exactly right. They should have said an El Salvadorian man residing in Maryland from the very get-go, but now they're being forced to report this because finally the news is so loud they can't ignore it. And they just glossed over that point. Like this clown who, you know, the way he's talking to Scott Jennings, trying to gaslight the audience. Oh, the right's taking advantage. You know, the media is under attack. Really? No, American people have been under attack by lies and propaganda from the woke mainstream press. And this guy has got it completely 180 degrees backwards. And I love Scott Jennings on CNN. I think he's doing the Lord's work by putting up with these imbeciles and this garbage lies that get spewed over there. And he's pushing this garbage nonsense that the right is the bad. They're trying to take advantage. Again, projecting everything they are onto everyone else. All the while, they lie to everybody in the process. Like, it's absolutely pathetic. But I'm glad more of these people keep talking because we, the American people, get to see all of their BS on full display. Because as Tim Pool mentioned, you know, the journalist that they just had on who didn't know the whole thing behind, you know, Trump not saying Nazis were good people. And he brought up Hassan Piker. You know, he never knew that the Maryland man was actually from El Salvador because these people don't actually pay attention. That's the point I think Tim Pool is hitting at, is that none of these people, they read a headline, they see a TikTok, they see whatever, but they don't actually really look at the news. They just look at someone else interpreting it for them, and they just take the bait, hook, line, sinker. Hit that like button if you think these leftist clowns are nothing but cheap, and let's get back in.
The whole thing, they're like, we weren't lying. He was residing in Maryland, therefore Maryland man. I get it, but you're intentional. This was a thing about a guy that was deported to El Salvador, and he was El Salvadorian. You can't leave that out.
Yeah, he was Trump with a heart twice as big. He brought Abrego Garcia home. Thank you, Trump.
Thank you for letting
me play the rest of this clip because Jarvis calls us freaks.
For CBS or any other news outlet, the reason that you have lost trust ought to be obvious to you, and the way to fix it also ought to be obvious to you, and it has nothing to do with Donald Trump and everything to do with the product. Just try to make a better product that appeals to more people, and the way you appeal to more people is by not crapping on half or more than half of the country because of their values and political viewpoints.
I think that is
what you'd end up with in that press room then is, and these are my words, the freak show that Trump wants. Trump tries to devalue media. Why should we value his freak show there? Leave it to the freaks.
I think calling them freaks.
Leave it to the freaks.
I don't think there's any disagreement on that, by the way.
I mean, he called these new media sources the freak show. They're not freaks. They have audiences.
Some of them are.
They have audiences, and there's a reason that they're thriving is because people are starved for information that they think they can trust. They're not freaks. They're filling a need in this country, in my opinion.
All right.
He said they're freaks. So why do these freaks have more viewership, more further reach? It's because that is the elitist disdain they have for each and every one of you. To those of you who are loyal viewers of Timcast IRL, I saw many of you were posting messages thanking me for being there and congratulating me for being there. Some people were saying, how dare you, Tim, not wear a suit? I got those messages too. But the people who watch the show watch it because you trust us. Like Scott Jennings says, we fill a need. This show only has an audience because we must be doing something right. We have made a good product. I read the news all day, every day. I do a morning show. If I don't do the morning show, I don't got nothing for the nightly show. It's very hard to do Timcast IRL because the pre-production and research is my morning show. I read hundreds of articles every day. I'm reading tweets. I'm watching videos. I'm fact-checking things. And then when it comes to Timcast IRL, I largely have read everything in the day, and I have a general idea of what these stories are. Jeff Jarvis doesn't do anything. He's a professor at a university. He doesn't actually work in media, and he's calling all of us freaks. The people in that room are uncurious. They don't fact check. They don't know that Trump never called Nazis very fine people. They don't know that Abrego Garcia is from El Salvador, and they don't bother to investigate. And I'll say this too, as much as a lot of people were very much entertained by Attar's appearance, and I very much enjoyed the conversation and the arguments and the debate. She did not know what was in the Signalgate texts. Okay, her understanding of these stories as a Brooklyn-based journalist is surface level. We've gone over those texts thousands of times. Like, not literally thousands, you know what I mean? We've done the stories over and over and over again. So when I'm having a conversation about them, I'm like, I think I had to read those things like 15 times within an hour. From sourcing the story and trying to understand it, to reading it during the show, to sharing with other people, to explaining to those who are going to be editing or putting clips together or something like that, what part of I'm reading the text over and over and over again. And so when it comes to a conversation, I'm like, I know what's in those texts. I know what was said. I could probably paraphrase each text. I've read it so much. These journalists that are in the White House, they show up and their editor's like, ask her about this. And they go, okay. And then they don't even know what they're talking about. That's normal to these people. But when anybody with an opposing viewpoint is finally let in, to the elites, it's a freak show.
Now, I will admit, I do think Tim Pool probably should have worn a suit to the White House. I think that would have been a good look. But just to see these elitist a-holes just reeling from the fact that someone else got into the White House and got the first question over them is just driving these woke leftists absolutely mad. As Tim Pool pointed out, they see it as a freak show. Anyone else has a different opinion other than them, they're a freak show because they're so arrogant. They are so elitist. They are, their crap smells like roses. These people are full of their own delusion. They don't care what average normal people think. They absolutely don't care. They can call it a freak show all they want, but as Tim Pool pointed out, all of these other independent media have way far more views than CNN or MSNBC. Why? Because no one trusts them anymore. And that's the whole thing these elitists don't get. They have lost the credibility and the trust of the American people. And that is exactly why Tim Pool got access into the White House. Him, other influencers, other people who are talking in the space. These are the people who are taking over. Why? Because just like me, we are desperate for genuine people. We want the truth. We want reality. We don't want the fake news. We don't want the lies. We don't want the propaganda. We don't want all of this garbage that is spoon-fed to us by these people who think that they can just talk down and preach to American citizens as if we are just worker peons to serve their interests. No, we are the citizens. We are the rulers. This is our country, not yours. And it's high time people start getting better news, better information, and working and acting in better ways and kick these junkies to the curb. But folks, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought about what Tim Pool had to say about this woke elitist a-hole who wants to talk down and preach to the American people as if they're freaks just for having a different point of view. Take care, like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.